Ian Salisbury, thanks ever so much for joining us. Ian, first and foremost, welcome to Middlesex. Joined the club fairly recently in a coaching consultancy role. How have we settled in?
Obviously just started a new year, really excited. Always loved coming to Lords, fond memories, MCC Young Cricketer, back in the day, selling scorecards, doing the covers, working the scoreboard when it wasn't electronic, so I've got massively fond days from there. Obviously then loads of rivalry over the years, different clubs coming back here, and then obviously my probably highlight in my career was making my test debut here at Lords. So to be back here amongst mates, I'm really looking forward to the season.
I know a big part of Jono being really keen to get you for this role was that relationship that you've built up over the years. He speaks very fondly of the playing relationship you used to have, where he used to bomb you, you used to try and hook him. How well have you kept in contact with Johnny? Because obviously that playing career as rivals then went into a coaching career with England.
We've always been mates, yeah. I know it's hard to believe, but he is younger than me, so I was one of the more senior players on A tour. I had Jono so he was under my wing. But we've always gone well. The unfortunate thing about being a spinner, you can never bomb people back, and he used to literally bomb me every time we played against each other. Not only that, then he tried to hit me for six every single ball. So I think it's probably about even over the years. But obviously, then we'd always go for a Diet Coke after the game. Stay friends ever since. Even one of the last times we were all together was one of Rams's weddings. Went to that together, so I knew his missus then. He obviously knew my poor wife. But we just always stayed mates, and then it was so good to see him last year. I was in my second year as a head coach, and he was in his first year. We caught up a bit, obviously, when he was at Surrey, and I just think he's going to do an amazing job. He's listened to him, how he speaks to the players, how he converses, what his ideas are. I just feel honoured to be part of that.
Obviously, another big part of Jono getting you here was the experience you've had as head coaches at both Surrey and Sussex. Back at Sussex, you obviously worked with a relatively young group of players there as well. Fairly similar to what you've got here. You've got some experienced heads, you've got a lot of youngsters. How much are you looking forward to fulfilling a similar role, I guess, in helping those youngsters to develop their own careers?
Yeah, I mean, look, it was a great opportunity, one, to be a head coach there and work with youngsters. They're slightly older than what they were at Sussex, but I also know there is guidance required, but also trying to create a safe environment. It's okay for them to make mistakes. The reason they are youngsters is they will make some mistakes, but also on the plus side, they're also fearless. It's also, don't try and hold them back. I would say more importantly, give them a free license, particularly I think looking at Middlesex over the last few years in T20 cricket. I think just be fearless. The world's your oyster, be fearless. I think luckily here in the 4-day side, you sort of bookend your side. You got international opening batters, international opening bowlers, people like Simo in the middle of the order, fitting people in around that, so much more experienced squad. But also, obviously, I've done been part of a lot of analysis on how to beat Middlesex or how to compete against them, so I've got a lot of insight on the players beforehand. And then trying to marry the two together to help Jono get the best out of his players. And the other bit, I suppose, I'm just an old git who's been around the block a bit, and so I know a trick or two.
Jono's managed to build himself up a coaching team here of people that he can rely on and trust implicitly. He's obviously worked a lot with Alan Coleman and both Rory Coots as well in the past. You obviously fit that mould, as does Mark Ramprakash. How impressed have you been with the coaching unit you've walked into here in Middlesex?
Like anything, I mean, it has its challenges, different challenges to what I had. Literally at Sussex, the ground was ours. So I was always aware of that when coming here. I knew Jono, we worked together, England under 17s, under 19s, and when he couldn't do something, Alan Coleman did it for him. So I knew Alan from there, and obviously I've known Ramp since we were like 15 years old. We've worked together. I was still coaching at Surrey when he was still playing. So we go back, and then Rory just looks like his knowledge is incredible. There's a bit of yin and yang there, I think, with him and Jono. And so I think Jono's choice is to be more laid back than Rory, I think, from what I've seen so far, or he just makes him do all the work. But there seems a lovely balance to it as much as anything else. But more importantly, their passion to get Middlesex winning trophies again is really apparent.
And as a coach, Sols, what style of coaching do you bring to that group? Obviously, you mentioned yin and yang. You've got differences in Jono and Rory and Coley and Ramps. How about yourself? What's your forte?
I'm not somebody who will bull in. I'm a pretty relaxed character. Not much can hurt me. I've had my ups and downs in life, let alone. I see myself as being person first always. I love trying to build relationships. So I'll probably be somebody, I've got 2 eyes, 2 ears and 1 mouth. So I tend to listen, observe a lot more. And so it's been a couple of weeks now, and I haven't said a great deal, but I've watched an awful lot and listened an awful lot. And for me, I look for character. I think ultimately we're human beings first and cricketers second. And I think if you have a connection with a player as a human being, it's so much easier to get something out of them as a cricketer. And then you sort of multiply that as a group. Ultimately, it's just something we're good at. But also we're human beings, and how we conduct ourselves and how we culturally are and the environment you create, I think is crucial to anything. So yeah, I would say person first, cricketer second, and then if you listen enough, you watch enough, you find out a lot about people. And then again, I'll never bowl a ball for anybody, I'll never hit a ball for anybody, I'll never catch one. And so then my coach style will be try and teach them to be their best coach, because there's nothing more satisfying than watching a team change something out there that you know they've worked on that wasn't going the right way. And the same as you watch a batter get through a difficult period because you know it's something they've worked on, but they've coached themselves. Rather than just nick off and say, I'll work on it, they sort it out in the middle. Or you watch a bowler who's maybe not in as good a rhythm as could be, and then they change it themselves because they're their best coach. They come up with their own solutions. So I'd say that's probably as satisfying as anything as a coach.
Interesting. One last one, Sols, possibly an unfair one. You've only been on board 2 weeks. What are your hopes and expectations for the Middlesex side this year?
Personally, from the get-go, really it's a long season, but more importantly is to try and help them be as prepared as they can be to achieve what they want to. So it's not a game. I'm very much staying in the process. Outcome looks after itself. So if everybody just improves just a little bit, whether they're a batsman, whether they're somebody like Sam Robson, who's been around the block, but he still wants to get better, and he gets better. And Stoneman does, but then say you watch a Luke Holman and he gets better. It's more if you see individuals and the team get better, that for me is more satisfying than results, because they ultimately you've got 3 competitions and you've got 18 counties all trying to win. Like being in the 2nd division last year, you couldn't win the county championship. So that was taken out of the equation, whereas at least this year, if you play well and results, the outcome looks after a good process, you could win it. But ultimately, every county's trying to win every game. It's a really tough ask to win. But I can't remember, where was it, 2015 last trophy? 16, county championship. So you're going into April with a chance of winning the county championship, and looking at the experience, and then if everybody improves still within that, you've got a chance of being up there, I would say.
Couldn't agree with you more. I did say that was the last one. I just want to pick up on one thing that you've touched on there. What are the challenges going to be like in Division 1? Obviously Sussex Division 2 side, you're back up in Division 1 with Middlesex now, proposes and presents yourself with a fresh load of challenges. How much are you looking forward to that and relishing the opportunity to compete in Division 1 and potentially win that title?
Yeah, I mean, I was an advocate of the sort of 2 COVID years where I like a little bit old school that any county could win the county championship. But rules are rules, so there's only going to be 10 people who can. The challenges are, it's interesting, so I really enjoyed playing against the Yorkshires, the Lancashires. A lot of the games we played for Sussex were against 1st division counties. Generally they just do everything a little bit better for a bit longer. So whether that's averaging 400 runs, or they might have that extra better bowler, or that extra depth in their batting lineup. You look at Surrey obviously with a benchmark last year, and you look, they turned 400s into 500s to 600s. You had a Jamie Overton batting at 9, or whoever down the order, and then you have that extra bowler that can always come. Jax is batting at 7 and is now playing Test match cricket, and each one has just got a little bit more depth, that extra batter or that extra bowler, and they just do it, that pressure for a bit longer. And so that is your challenge, but that's what I'm seeing, that they're aware of that, and I think that's the reason why Middlesex and Notts went up last year, because they should deserve to be in the first division, because they just did everything just a bit better for a bit longer.
Good to hear. Well, Sols, look, thanks ever so much for joining us. All the very best of luck this year with Middlesex. I hope you enjoy it. Great to see you back at Lords, as you say, where you made your Test debut. Hope it all goes well for you.
Thank you, mate. Pleasure.